That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. As I start today, I'd like to read Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Growing up, I was taught to believe that a reference to God or a deity or the voice of God or that still small voice within was really a voice out there. I was taught that to hear the voice of God and to know the voice of God, that I had to be right with God. I never understood that, and I today still don't understand what it means to be right with God. The level of consciousness that I held about my walk with God was stuff that I carried around with me from what I had learned as a child. Most of my life, I learned to use other people as guides. You know, showing me and telling me what to do, how to think, how to be, what and how to act and think on. And for so long, I carried with me the idea that I was to serve God out there, and that I would be judged or rewarded based on the way that I served that deity up there or out there. So my spiritual identity was wrapped up in a self-limiting belief of somehow not being good enough, not being whole, not being complete. I didn't realize at the time, but that this way of thinking, this was really an escape for me not being completely responsible for my life and for my calling. Many of us walk around with crutches, mentally limiting the truth of who we are. Mine just happened to be a belief in a God out there, and therefore keeping me from being wholly responsible for the growth and the power that was really mine to have. Yours could be a belief that someone told you that in your head you're not good enough. Somehow you don't meet up. And you've held on to that, and you're believing that still. And you so strongly hold on to that belief that it hinders your responsibility for growth and walk as Christ, heir to the kingdom. It could be that you have convinced yourself that you have a low self-esteem. And as a result, you're not strong enough. Strong enough to claim your place and to know without hesitation your true identity and power. Maybe you have fallen into the trap of comparison, comparing yourself to others and always coming up short. I learned a hard lesson, an important lesson, that every time I compare myself with someone else, I lose. Every single time. I don't know what belief you may hold so tightly to that continues to feed limiting thoughts of lack and discord, disempowering and suffering acts of pain and turmoil surrounding your inability to be present and to recognize your place with our brother Jesus as Christ. Or even if you have such struggles, I don't know. But for me, I know I did. I was so caught up living as I thought others wanted me to live and being as I thought others wanted me to be, to please others, to serve others in the name of God. I was so caught up in trying to be something I wasn't, pleasing others to include all beings, even God. And you know what? I was good at it. I was good at it. About 4 years ago, though, I wanted to attend a workshop in California around leadership. And it was how to partner with horses as co-facilitators, and they would teach you the power of an authentic leader. The problem was that this workshop was 21 days long, so 3 weeks long, right? And at the time, I worked about 65 plus hours a week. And I was an executive for a publicly traded for-profit company, and I was responsible for half of the revenues in this system. The other problem was that I worked for a boss who would never allow me to take 3 weeks off. The most he'd ever approved anyone was 10 days, and that was including weekends. So I knew it was going to be impossible, and I was never going to get permission to go. But as luck would have it, my boss, 2 months prior to the deadline to register for this workshop, my boss gets a promotion. And he's moved out of the state, out of the office, to a completely different area. And I get a new boss. And this new boss doesn't have such limiting beliefs or convictions around taking vacation that you've earned. And so I went to him and I asked him, I said, I want to go to this workshop on leadership, and it's 3 weeks long. And he went to HR and saw that I had earned the time, and he approved it. So I got in my car and I drove from Arizona to California. And there were about 20 people in my class. And each morning we met in the barn, and we would start our day with what they called check-ins. And the check-in would be to talk about what you learned the day before, how you were feeling about the workshop, what lessons or information you were taking in. And I just have to tell you, I was in heaven. I was on this beautiful ranch in Northern California, listening to a teacher who was highly acclaimed, author of many books, and well-respected. She was an international leader, known for her wisdom and love. And here I was, listening to her teach about authentic leadership. For the first week, it was amazing. I checked in every morning, as did the other folks that were participating in the workshop. And every evening before we were dismissed for dinner, we did the same thing. On Monday morning of the second week, as is customary, we're all in the barn and we start to check in. And people are going around in a circle and they're talking about how their weekend was and what they had learned the week before. And it was amazing for me to be a part of this. And it came my turn, and I started to speak. And I remember like it was yesterday. I shared how rested I felt, how my weekend was, how I'd spent time with my other classmates. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I was interrupted. I was interrupted by our teacher. And she looked at me directly in my eyes, and she said, I don't know what it is about your voice, but every time I hear you speak, I want to throw up. She said, I want to run as fast as I can out of this room. Well, that's not what I expected to hear. And I went to myself, wow. I was so taken aback that muscle memory had to have kicked in. And all I could hear myself say was, I'm sorry that you're so offended. It's the voice I've always had. In that barn, on that dirt floor, I swear it was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. We went through the day, and the next day, and the next day. And ladies and gentlemen, it didn't stop. She would not let it go. She continued almost every day, publicly, letting me know how my voice disgusted her. It got so intense that on the last day of the workshop, when we were supposed to be certified, we're supposed to go into the arena with a horse and another one of our classmates while the rest of the classmates watched on and critiqued. And we're supposed to do an exercise with the horse and the classmate. When it came my turn, she stood up, got in front of me, pushed me aside and said, sit down, I'll do this. Now, I was so thankful when the sun rose the next day, because it was over. I got in my car, and I drove back to Arizona. I went back to my little ranch. I went back to my work of 65 plus hours a week, and all of the overwhelming responsibility that was on my life. And now perplexed by this teacher's words and insistence around being repulsed by my voice. So the days passed, and they moved into months, and I find myself going faster and faster and working harder than ever before and taking care of everyone and serving and loving and working in the name of God. About 2 months after the workshop, I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear this voice in my heart. It wasn't an audible voice, just popped, these words popped into my mind. I must increase and you must decrease. And then I hear, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I sat up in my bed and I started to cry. I placed my face in my hands and I cried. And with each tear, I began to wake up spiritually, because now I got it. Reverend Rosella once asked a question in class, and I knew the answer right away. She said, have you ever been hit by a cosmic 2x4? That morning, sitting in my bed, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face, I was hit by a cosmic 2x4. See, I had been living my life pleasing others and seeking love and acceptance from others, and I had all these tiny little boundaries that I allowed people to disregard at leisure. And most insane of all, I had convinced myself that everything I was doing was in the name of God, was in the name of love, was in the name of service. But that night, when I woke up, spiritually, I saw it clearly. And it hit me really hard. It was really all about me. All of that service and action and devotion to God and love was really all about me. It was a lie. So I was living a lie. I was not living my truth. I was not claiming my power. And I was allowing other people to run my life in the name of what I called love, in the name of what I called God. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when I woke up, I knew I could no longer continue to live the lie that I had been living. And I could no longer be the fake. And I could no longer stop being responsible for my life. I woke up and I took responsibility for my life. And in so doing, I made drastic changes. I left a long-term relationship that was not healthy for me or the other person. I terminated people working on my ranch that were taking advantage of me and pretended to work full-time for full-time pay. I resigned my all-consuming, emotionally and physically draining job. I rented my ranch out. I packed up my dogs. I asked a friend to take a road trip with me and help me drive here. I walked into this church and I found a home. I sat under a teacher's love and tenderness and wisdom and embrace, and I started to heal. I enrolled in a ministerial school. I let go of the controls, and I began to feel receptive. And I started, for the very first time in my life, I started to experience deep trust in God. And as a result, deep, eternal joy. But more than all of this, I claimed the power and truth of the Christ in me as my identity and my new calling. I embraced the truth in the words that I am that I am. My inner voice is the voice of Christ, the voice of truth, the voice of love. And I realized my divine nature is infinite wisdom. I woke up, and now knowing I am divine wisdom, and I am now discerning how and where to offer my greatest gifts and talents. I no longer needed to use other people as guides to know the truth that's spoken about in Luke 12:32, where it says, "For me to claim with confidence, it is the Father's good pleasure to give me the kingdom." Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you, as in Matthew chapter 7, as it lays out for us, know what your main purpose and my main purpose is. And that is, it is to reform myself. And yours is to reform yourself. To find your voice. And with all magnificent joy, claim as yours. And know that as your awareness and spiritual confidence in your voice grows, so grows your power. So grows your character. Every single time we use the powerful and mind-altering words, I am, we are claiming a kinship. We are claiming a union with God. And we are claiming a union with our brother Jesus and with one another. As we claim the great splendor within us, we also claim the responsibility of self-realization and self-discipline. So I encourage you, if you're asleep spiritually, to wake up. Wake up to the truth and the power spoken in Ephesians 4:22. And it says, put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God, in true righteousness and holiness. As I close this morning, there's a poem by Shel Silverstein that goes like this. There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long, I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. Church family, I love you. And I thank you for accepting me and helping me find my home. Namaste.